Hi, I'm Pastor Tay of the Titus 2 Ministry and PastorTay.com. Welcome to Espresso. It's an interactive Bible study that is like espresso, strong and smooth. Enjoy the taste. Hey guys, Pastor Tay here, founder of the Titus 2 Ministry and PastorTay.com. And I want to welcome you to Talk Live Tuesday. Is this working? I think I am live. Let me check and see if it is going. If you are there, come on in. Ooh, I see some thumbs up, so I don't have to check. I appreciate that. Pastor Danny, aren't you at a baseball game or are you there? If so, how's your son doing? I see some other people. I don't recognize the icons, so please drop a comment and say hello. Tell me how you guys are doing. So hello, Danny Frost. Hello, Sarah. Good to see you tonight. And if you are out there, again, I see icons. I don't recognize them. They're tiny on there. But I'm trying to look and trying to say hello. Well, we see Lois. All right. Nice to see you, Lois. Long time no see. Good to see you. And looking forward to talking to you tonight about sex. All right. Just before we begin, I want to just say a few preliminary comments. This is Talk Live Tuesday, and we've been doing this for almost 3 years now. And it's an opportunity for you to ask your questions, make your comments, and I'm going to take them live right on the spot. So this is your chance to ask the questions that you've been thinking about for a very long time. And what we do here on Talk Live Tuesday is we take 4 major topics. And this is based on my years of counseling. I've been counseling for, I don't even know. I stopped counting. Well, 37 years, something like that. And I've realized that almost every major marriage counseling topic can be organized under 4 major areas, okay? Maybe 5, but here in Titus 2, I chose to keep it under 4, which are communication, conflict, in-laws, and sex. So let me say that again. Communication, which is the key to building a relationship. Conflict, which is solving a problem in a marriage. In-laws, you know, there's a lot of drama there. And number 4 is sex. Those are the 4 major categories, and I tell you this because there is a unit category, and thank you for all the thumbs up. I appreciate that, and all the hearts. Okay, I appreciate that as well, because I want you to interact and tell me how you feel, questions, if there's any confusion, let me know. So I'm telling you these 4 because we have a unit category. Well, it's called units, okay? And there's a menu tab for it. So if you're watching this on a mobile device, that units tab is above you. So scroll up just a little bit. You'll see it. You can tap it. Don't do that right now, but you can tap it later. And what it does is it gives you all of the past videos. And you can jump in and make comments and ask questions there. What it does is it reactivates them, puts them back into the home feed. And we can talk about it again. So it's all good, okay? Of course, it's better that you're live and that we can have this conversation. But later, go to the Units tab. Again, it's above you if you're watching this on a mobile device. It is to your left if you're watching this on a laptop or desktop. And again, the 4th category, I'm going to say, is one of the most important categories. In fact, experts say, write this down. In fact, somebody, if you don't mind, would you put inside the feed? I mean, there's a comment scroll here. Go inside the comment section and put in some of my key concepts for me. And that's going to help everybody else who is watching now and even later to follow along. And I'm going to say that experts say, write this down please if you would like, that sex or the health of your sexual relationship is a gauge to the overall health of your marriage. Did you get that? They say that sex is a gauge, and again, this is just a general comment, okay? Don't take everything too extreme, but they say it is the health or a gauge to the health of the overall marriage. Now, that might be shocking. I've said that in other videos as well. And it's because if your marriage is healthy, then the sex life is healthy. Now, if you flip that and you say, well, if the sex life is not healthy, that is definitely a reflection on the overall, okay, health of your marriage. And so there's a lot of assumptions there. For example, sex is connected to other things that are happening in the marriage. And by now, you should know that, okay? So Shannon writes, experts say that the health of your sexual relationship is a gauge to the overall marriage. I appreciate that, Shannon. Okay, and Pastor Danny, thank you for jumping in with that confirmation, because it is very, very important to look at your sex life and not isolate it, okay? That's the point. Don't isolate it and say, hey, okay, what's going on here? Chances are it's connected to a lot of other things that are happening in it. You like that little swing there? It's like a pendulum or a swing going back and forth. So here's a sex life, and then here's in-laws. I mention in-laws because, surprise, in-laws actually impact, meaning you're angry about what's happening and that affects your marriage, and they swing back. There's your sex life. And then there's unreconciled issues. And so it's like a pendulum going back and forth. I'm also going to, before I begin, just express my disappointment that the church has utterly failed in this area, okay? I'm not going to apologize for saying that, okay? I'm going to maintain that, because if the church had been a little bit more brave, all right, and share and to teach, we wouldn't have so many problems today. We wouldn't have so much ignorance today. But churches just flat out are too scared to talk about this topic, okay? So I'm just very, very disappointed, and I'm calling you guys out. If you guys are pastors out there, if you guys are Sunday school teachers and leaders, you really need to man up or women up and start teaching, about these important topics. And so maybe if churches did that, we wouldn't have such rude awakening and problems that we do. All right. So listen, inside the units category, there are a lot of sex videos inside there. That sounds really bad, but it's all good. In fact, there's 6 of them there. Okay. And so what I did was I surveyed them to make sure that I'm not overlapping too much with them. So make sure you go to the units tab on sex and then try to access them as well. But tonight I'm going to talk about sexual conflicts. And listen, I'm not going to finish. All right, there's too much stuff there. Looks like our comment or commentary, the scrolling is pretty lively tonight. I appreciate that. So would you guys please drop your comments and questions? I have a feeling I won't be able to finish tonight. It may take several videos for us to finish. So I'm looking at the clock. Let's go for about 20 more minutes, okay? And again, if it's whatever, feel free to drop comments in every or any time, okay? Even after in the replay. So I'm going to talk about sexual conflicts tonight. And let's start with a pop quiz. You guys ready? Listen, don't put the answers inside the feed, all right? We're going to start with a pop quiz, and I just want you to answer the questions in your mind however way. And I'm only mentioning these to stimulate you so that you're thinking about the issues in your life. I'm going to just give you 10. And then the next time around when we talk about sex, I'm going to give you some more as well, okay? Don't drop the answers, guys. But I'll mention a category and just kind of think, yeah, I'm like that. Or my spouse is like that. But you know what? For this pop quiz purposes, I want you to think about yourself, okay? You ready? Here we go. I don't talk about sex. Okay, so that was the first one. I don't talk about sex. Just want you to think about these things. I make excuses not to have sex. I make excuses not to have sex. I have a negative attitude towards sex. Okay, now be honest, okay? I'm just giving you some pop quiz stuff. Keep the answers to yourself, okay? Here's another one. I don't like my spouse. And I don't want to have sex with my spouse. All right, be honest. You don't have to put it in the feed, but honestly, it's a time of self-inventory. I can't have sex. Listen to this one. I can't have sex until certain issues are resolved. Okay? I can't have sex until certain issues are resolved. My partner's selfish approach is affecting me. Okay? My partner's selfish approach is affecting me. And by the way, I'm using the word partner in the biblical sense because the Bible uses that word, not using it in the liberal sense as it is used today. Here's another one. My past is haunting me and affecting my present sex life. Okay. Here's another one. I use sex, be honest, I use sex to control my spouse. Those of you jumping in, we're having a quick pop quiz here. Don't drop the answer, but just ask yourself, think about these issues. Here's one. I don't have time for sex. Okay? I don't have time for sex. Last but not least, I am too tired to have sex. Too tired. Okay? That's a really loaded one right there. All right, you guys. Those are the 10 that I gave you there. Just think about them and maybe it'll stimulate some questions and comments. And by the way, I appreciate you guys saying hello to each other because one of the blessings of going live is that it's an opportunity to be a community. Okay? And so, good job, guys. Continue to be nice to each other. Drop questions and comments and interact with each other. And go ahead. Talk amongst yourselves as we start. Somebody is texting me like crazy right now, but I'm going to ignore it as we begin tonight. Now listen, you should know by style by now, and that is how much I emphasize diagnosis. It's very important that you diagnose the problem. You don't want to jump to conclusions. You don't want to give out pat answers or be flippant or too shallow in how you approach this. Very important that you diagnose it. And so in many of my teachings, I spend a lot of time diagnosing the situation, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to diagnose sexual conflict. That's the topic on the table. Why is there so much conflict? When you first got married, you thought this would be the most easiest part or the most exciting part, the most positive, enjoyable, and satisfying, and there's definitely moments of that, but why is there so many problems? Why is there so much conflict? Okay, well, let's diagnose that tonight, and I want you guys to, Sarah said, I was wondering what that noise was. I thought I got a new notification alert. Yeah, somebody's texting me like crazy. I hope it's not an emergency, okay? I'm just going to keep on rolling here for a little bit. So let's start with understanding the problem. I'm talking about the conflict. Why is there a conflict here, okay? And the first major one, and you got to listen very carefully to this, and I want you to think about the dynamic, the relationship in your marriage, okay? And that is, I thought it was a doorbell, Cheryl. Yeah, I know. I got to change that notification ringtone. All right. Number one is allowing, and I'm talking about why there's conflict, and that is you are allowing the differences, and you can call it gender differences, you can call it spousal differences, but I'm talking about differences. I'm talking about how look at your spouse right now. Are you sitting with your spouse? Look at your spouse. You and your spouse are very, very different. I dare say you guys are opposites of one another. And those differences, if you allow those differences to become a tension, did you get that? Allowing the differences to become a tension. Now listen, when you were dating, you should have known you guys were opposites of one another. When you guys got married, you definitely should know that you're opposites of one another. Somebody said that love is blind, but marriage is an eye opener. So your eyes should be open to know how much your spouse is different from you. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. There's freedom to express differences and styles and so forth. You guys are different from one another. I can't even talk tonight. Different from one another, that's what I'm trying to say. And the point is that you should celebrate those differences. And so, Sarah, you said we are very opposite of each other for sure. Not a surprise. Okay, that's my point. Everybody marries their opposites. And so you need to celebrate that. And I talk about that in the unit category conflict. But here we are. Now it spills over. Remember this pendulum swinging? Spills over into sexual things, and now we got sexual conflict, and it's because those differences, call it gender differences, call it relational differences, call it what you will, but it's a difference. And instead of celebrating, you are, and here's my point, and write this down, you are allowing those differences to be a source of tension. Okay, I mean, before it was fine when you guys were dating and you celebrated that. You found it refreshing, okay? But now you're allowing those differences to get to you, all right? So Sarah writes, if we were the same, it would be boring. Right. I mean, God has designed it to be a complementary relationship where you're celebrating that. So that's a positive attitude, Sarah. I appreciate that. You should have that outlook. That goes back to the dating when it was exciting to be with somebody that was different. But now it becomes a source of tension, okay? And so without going into all of that, because I do develop that under the unit category conflict, I do want to say, all right, that we're allowing it to be a source of tension. It could be gender differences. Oftentimes it is. But I want to be very careful not to just, really emphasize that, because that it could be just, reversed, okay? So, it could be classic guy-girl differences, but it could be reversed in your marriage, and there's nothing wrong with that, okay? So don't misunderstand. And so as you have those differences, here, let me just mention some categories, okay? And I want you to think about yourself, and I want you to think about your spouse and kind of identify who's who, okay? What style or what attitude or perspective, okay? I'm going to mention a large category, and you tell me, I'm that way, or my spouse is this way, and you'll realize, here's my point, you'll realize that you're opposites of one another. That's a good thing. But unfortunately, that is something you decide to make an issue. And now you guys are upset at each other because of that. For example, I'll mention a large category called perspective. Okay? In other words, how you look at sex. So somebody put that word down. Perspective. So under the category of perspective, there's usually two different ways of looking at it. For example, usually women, okay, and again, it's just general. It could be reversed, and it's fine. Usually women see it as relational, or it's about intimacies. And men usually see it as more physical. Okay, so just a generality. And by the way, you know why I mention generalities? Because they're generally true, okay? So it's just generally true. For example, in the large category called perspectives, usually the woman is more relational. Okay, tell me, does that make sense? More into intimacy, whereas men are more physical. And so they are, not as into intimacy and so forth. So that's a category, all right? Here's another category, approach. And in this category, tell me which one you are. In this category, one is more comprehensive, meaning it's about everything that has happened throughout the day, and everything is part of the experience and so forth. So I guess if your spouse was kind of a pain in the butt all day long, that kind of impacts the sexual experience of life. So approach means it's more comprehensive. Everything is connected together. Or the approach could be more in the moment, meaning that's the opposite. Now you're not really thinking about what happened throughout the day, and then in that moment you are ready to go, okay, for the experience? Are you more comprehensive, like everything affects you? Whereas, or are you more in the moment, like, you could have been a turkey all day long, and now you are in the moment and ready to go. And your spouse won't be looking at you saying, wait a minute, you've been mean to me all day long. You've been, a jerk to me all day long. And now you want to have sex? That ain't happening. All right? So those are the things. The category is called approach. One spouse is more comprehensive, like factoring in everything that has happened in the day or the week. And the other person is in the moment. And that person is usually the guy. And so he's not thinking about what he did all day long or all week long, and doesn't understand how all of that is processed because he's just in the mood. And so those things are factors. What about this? Think about you and your spouse. The category is physical desire. Okay? So under the category of physical desire, here are two key words. Which one is you? Lesser, greater. Okay? And again, we're just talking about how you're just so opposite. Isn't that amazing? So opposite of one another. Lesser, greater. We're talking about the category called physical desire. Chances are you are either lesser or greater than your spouse, and that factors in. All right? So good job, you guys. Keep interacting. I appreciate it. Drop a comment. Stop me anytime, okay? And if I miss one of the things in the scroll, please drop it again if you don't mind, and we will continue to talk. And it doesn't have to be a profound question. It can be just a confirmation of the things that we are talking about here, okay? How about, here's another category, and tell me which one you are. Prep time. Prep time. Okay, so some people need a lot of time, okay? They need like a couple days to think about it and get themselves ready. So in other words, a lot of time is needed. Or no time is needed. I mean, you're ready to go. So under the category of prep time, which one are you and which one is your spouse? A lot of prep time, no prep time. Again, these are the great differences. As again, God made us different, and we tend to marry somebody who's different from us. And so these are things that should be complementary in the relationship. But here's the point, as we're diagnosing right now why we have conflicts is because we allow the differences to create tension. That's the point. Okay? How about another category? Thinking about it. Okay, you're thinking about sex. All right? Underneath, you got two different possibilities. One is you need a reminder because you never think about it. You're busy thinking about other things, work, family, in church, whatever, And another, or your spouse is thinking about it all the time. That's usually the case. Like one person needs a constant reminder, like, hey, we should spend some time together. And the person's like, oh yeah, haven't thought about it in a week. Whereas the other person is thinking about it all the time. And so those are the differences. And last but not least, I'm going to mention what's wrong with you? I can't even talk. I'm going to mention a big category, and you tell me if it's an issue or not. Unresolved issues. Okay, there's some big problem in your marriage. Okay, unresolved issues. Remember the pendulum swinging? Okay, so swinging from sex life to conflict issues in your marriage, swinging back and forth. The category is unresolved issues. Now, for one spouse, it's a major issue, meaning, listen, if we're having problems with in-laws or if we're having problems with communication or some other problem or whatever, I cannot have sex with you until this is resolved. So we'll call that unresolved issues. It's a major issue for that person. Whereas another person is like, oh, we're just having sex, And so it's not an issue. So major issue, minor issue. Okay? So those are just some of the categories that we talked about here. Shannon writes, ha ha. Reminds me of that song, I'm in the mood for love. I think women need romance and to feel loved at first. I need to feel deeply connected emotionally and spiritually. Okay, that's the intimacy that we're talking about. the relational aspect of it. In the Mood for Love is a little complicated. I know what you're referring to as the song, I need to feel loved first. I know how you're using that phrase, Shannon. You're using it to express how there has to be a relational connection there. Love is very broad of a category, Shannon. I don't have a problem with what you're saying, but I do want to broaden it out. I think what you're saying is very biblical. Women desire the love, but love involves many things. In fact, I'm going to mention Acts chapter 20, where it says it's more blessed to give than to receive. So definitely, Shannon, what you're saying is very biblical, very important, but we do want to understand that sex also is the expression of giving, not just receiving, like, I gotta feel love. In fact, if you look at another video I did, I think it's called Our Duty to Have Sex. That might have been the first one that I've done where I talk about the responsibility, the marital duty to have sex. And in that situation, you don't have to feel love. Now, Shannon, what you said is absolutely right. But there are situations where you can have sex for the purpose of fulfilling the marital responsibilities to your spouse. I know that's a difficult topic. If you want to talk about it, drop a comment below, but it is inside the unit category. So thank you, Martha, for dropping that in. Acts chapter 20, it is more blessed to give than to receive. But thank you for your comment, Shannon. I don't have a problem with what you said there, okay? All right, so we're still trying to understand really why there is conflict, okay? And we're still trying to unpack this whole idea, and I'm looking at the clock, and oh my goodness, we're almost out of time. I had a feeling we would not be able to finish tonight, but Pastor Danny, better to give than to receive. I appreciate that very much. And Martha, thank you for the reminder to check the units tab. Again, that tab is above you, watching this on a mobile device, and it is to your left if you're on a laptop or desktop, because we're going to have to go back and look at some of the other ones in order to stitch all of these together. But I'm just going to sneak in a few more comments and give you guys a chance to make your final questions and comments that are there. I was going to mention another category, but I see Shannon saying, without unresolved issues you know about, I have no problem with that. Okay, thank you for that, Shannon. We're still unpacking this concept of why there is conflict. And the first proposal was that, you know what, you guys are different in so many categories, right? Like approach and unresolved issues and thinking about it, I've mentioned to you. We're so different, and we allow those differences to create tension, and that is one of the major reasons why there is sexual conflict. Shannon, you wrote, when we get older, the intimacy is more of emotional and spiritual connections. I feel we need to be on the same page. I don't think one spouse can be into it and the other spouse not be into it. I'm going to agree with you, Shannon. On the largest, the highest level of intimacy and unity and what God designed for people to be together, that's really important. In fact, the Bible emphasizes really knowing each other and being at peace with one another. In fact, I'm going to quote Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, where it says Adam lay with his wife. In other words, had sex with his wife, but the word there is know, K-N-O-W. Oops, Sarah, I don't want to lose what you're saying. I agree with Danny. You have to give, and it is better to give than to receive. Thank you for that, Sarah. And so back to Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. Adam lay with his wife. In the original Hebrew, the word is know, K-N-O-W, meaning having sex is in its highest form of intimacy and knowledge, and the things that Shannon said in the scroll just a little bit up there. Being on the same page and all of that is, I'm going to agree with all of that. Knowledge and knowing is just so important to that whole process. So Adam knew his wife. It's not just a euphemism, not just a way to cover up how awkward it is to talk about sex, but it's to say that, knowledge is such a part of the intimacy and the unity, being on the same page and all of that. And wouldn't it be awesome if that was the highest experience of all of that? So Shannon, that is very profound. I appreciate that so much. And that's why, in its highest form, and then we come down to, where all these conflicts and problems that are there. And thank you, Martha, for dropping Genesis 4 verse 1. Thank you for that. And, you come down here and it's just struggling with all these misunderstandings and conflicts and clearly not on the same page. And these are the things that we need to work on as we try to unpack. And again, I'm not going to finish tonight, but that's okay, not in a hurry. Now, if you are in a hurry, you know that you can contact me for a free conversation, right? But not in a hurry, because I want to systematically provide an archive for you so that you can work through and get deep quality answers. And so Sarah writes, sex is a gift from God for a husband and a wife. It is a beautiful expression of love and becoming one. Amen. That's exactly what we're talking about here. It's about unity. It's about two people who are busy in their lives and being distant from one another. And God has designed it as the highest expression of unity, and celebrating that and finding joy and satisfaction in that. And appreciate the confirmation from Shannon to Sarah's comments that are there. So with all of these things, listen, I'm just going to stop here. I thought I could get a little bit further, but it's all good. I appreciate all the interaction that is in the feed. We went 30 minutes. Wow, time flies, huh? And I don't want to rush, because when you rush, then the videos become shallow, okay? And I don't want that to happen. And so I'm going to say that we're going to come back to the topic, and you know how that works. We have the 4 major topics, which are communication, conflict, in-laws, and sex. And when we're done with that, we go back to the top and start the rotation all over again. So we're going to come back to it again. I put a note as to where I stopped. And we're going to continue talking about sexual conflicts, diagnosing it, and then we're going to get to biblical solutions. How are we going to solve them? And that forth. And Sarah says, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And I just want to recommend, again, inside the unit category sex. By the way, I'm not the only one that teaches in that unit category. You're going to find lots of other teachers that are there, and you're going to be blessed by the things. And, sexual conflict. I brought this up because it wasn't covered in the previous videos, and I thought conflict is such a big thing. And that reminds me that Titus 2, we opened up another private community called Titus 2 Overcoming Porn. And that's another major thing, as men and women watch porn and how that destroys the marriage there. So I want to just remind you that community is open, and right now it's just for men. And later we might have a community for ladies as well, but right now it's for men. And we invite you to be part of the Titus 2 Overcoming Porn. And in closing, I just want to say that if anything tonight has sparked any issues for you, and you just want to talk to somebody, you can contact me for a free conversation, right? You'll be surprised how quickly I respond to you, and we can have a chat about what's going on. I can help you diagnose it, and we can come up with a plan for how you can deal with these things in your marriage. So I just put a note as to where we stop. God bless you guys. If you think of something later that you want to ask, you can go back into the replay, drop a comment there. But until then, thank you guys. We're going to continue next Tuesday for Talk Live Tuesday, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation tonight, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone, and good night.
Thanks for joining us for a devotional drink today. If you love Espresso, click here to subscribe so you know when the next one is ready to enjoy. Visit our website for resources for every chapter of your life. And if you're thirsty for more, click here. See you next time. May God bless your day.